Hero is a Chinese film that came out in 2002 that's directed by Yimou Zhang. So Hero is actually a $50 Patreon request that comes from Jayduh. This is actually the first time Jayduh has ever requested a film, and I can't express to you how much her support means to me. She's been an amazing supporter of my channel and a wonderful member of my Discord community for quite some time now. And I'm just really appreciative of her support and her company. And by the way, there are actually 3 slots left when it comes to Patreon requests. So if you're interested in requesting a film to me for me to review in the next month of March, please join by the end of February so I can fulfill that. But anyway, I was really happy that Jayduh requested Hero because Hero is a film that's been on my radar for quite some time. And it's for obvious reasons, mostly because of the fact that Christopher Doyle is behind the cinematography in this film. And Christopher Doyle is popularly known for his cinematography work in Wong Kar-wai's films, which look absolutely stunning. And obviously I'm a huge fan of Wong Kar-wai films, not only because I just love his style of filmmaking, but also because visually the way that his films are presented just look absolutely gorgeous and engrossing. And speaking of Wong Kar-wai, you got both Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung reuniting in this film 2 years later after the masterpiece that is In the Mood for Love. And that was also something that was really amplifying my excitement for this film. But really this entire cast is incredible because besides Tony Leung and Maggie Cheung, you also got Jet Li and Ziyi Zhang. And you really couldn't ask for a better cast than this, especially for a Chinese film. These are just like the absolute superstars of Chinese filmmaking. But with all that being said, now after watching the film, what did I actually think about it? Well, my honest opinion is that I think that this is a great film. Now, with that being said, some things were a bit unexpected for me. Most notably, the fighting style in this film. I've never really seen anything like this in like a fighting martial arts action film. And that's only because I am, again, as I mentioned in my Righting Wrongs review, I am quite ignorant to Chinese filmmaking in general. And so when characters are floating around in the air and defying every single element of gravity, and it's basically like I'm watching like a live action anime in a way. It caught me off guard for a little bit because I wasn't prepared for this. But it grew on me and I really grew to appreciate it. There's just this really elegant ballet-esque thing going on with it. And in one way it felt calculated, but in another way it felt very free form. And it created this odd yet beautiful mixture of fight choreography that, again, I admired as the film progressed. And I think the reason why it did grow on me, besides the fact that aesthetically I found it appealing, is because as the film progresses into its more thematic elements, it does come off as quite a spiritual film, especially with this one fight sequence that we get later on in the film that takes place at a lake. And that is certainly one of the sequences in the film that I do think does amplify this very natural and, in touch with nature, in touch with oneself, again, just spiritual element to everything that really does hammer home that feeling and kind of got me to understand more, why this style was chosen for this film. But yeah, ultimately what I'm really just trying to say is that I did really end up digging it quite a bit. And it was nice to be exposed to a style that I've just never been exposed to. Well, I guess if I'm trying to be 100% truthful, I actually have seen this style of fighting before, but it was in Kung Pao Enter the Fist, which is a film that I'm deeply in love with. But that's a film that's obviously, I guess, spoofing this type of filmmaking and this type of fighting style, which is something that I didn't know, and I learned something new while watching it. But anyway, let's talk about the cinematography, because yes, that was a huge thing that I was looking forward to going into this film. Pretty much the biggest reason why I wanted to see this film was for the cinematography. And yes, it is absolutely gorgeous. Beautifully shot film. You could just tell every single frame had so much delicate attention to it, so much creativity poured into it. It really is a huge part of the experience that this film gives you because it's so eye-popping. And again, I think not only does it look gorgeous, but I do think in terms of the color palette, there's a lot of symbolic meanings. And it's not just nice and pretty to just look shiny and nice. I think that a lot of this film, in terms of how it looks, there was, again, thought poured into it in terms of what it currently means for the character, the current story context, and yeah, it's a huge part of this film's experience, and it certainly doesn't disappoint. Now, what I will say, and I might be the only person on earth to say this about it, is that there were a few scenes where I think there was a little bit too much of just one color. There's this one scene where literally everything in the scene is blue. Literally fucking everything. And I understand it has, it's meaningful, but it wasn't the most visually pleasant thing to look at. But that is incredibly nitpicky because 98% of this film, I think is absolutely beautiful, and I wouldn't change a damn thing about it. Now, in terms of performances, I won't stay too long on this because I just think everybody was pretty much equally great in this film. They all had to show like equal levels of emotion, equal levels of intensity, and I think they all absolutely killed it. But I do want to just give a quick shout out to Ziyi Zhang because she is an actress that I remember seeing a lot, especially in Rush Hour 2. Rush Hour 2 is my shit. It's still my shit. I don't give a shit what anybody says. But I remember seeing her in Rush Hour 2 growing up and just crushing on her, like, in an unhealthy way. I just thought she was gorgeous. She was kick-ass. And she's still in this movie gorgeous and kick-ass. And it was just awesome, to see her in other roles that I wasn't exposed to at the time. Now thanks to Jin coming into my life, I got to watch Memoirs of a Geisha as well. And she's also excellent in that film. So yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out to her because she actually kind of did have a huge place into my upbringing, into my childhood, and into my preteens. And also her and Maggie Cheung have a scene together in my opinion, what is the most beautifully shot scene in the entire film. There's a scene where they have a fight scene together, and it's in this beautiful looking autumn leaves landscape that, again, it's just so gorgeous from start to finish. The way that the effects are used are honestly, I really loved it. There's some parts, like with the arrows, where a bunch of people are shooting arrows where you can tell, like, it's 2000 CGI. But for the most part, it didn't really bother me. And I think when the CGI was used in parts like the autumn leaves part, I think it holds up incredibly well and definitely actually adds more to the scene. And I'm glad that they did use it there. So let's move on to the writing and the narrative and just the thematic elements of this film, because this is where it gets, I don't want to say shaky, but just a little wiggly. But in terms of the narrative, I'm going to intentionally avoid giving out too many specific details about really the narrative or anything like that. So in a really simplistic nutshell, the central concept of the narrative is Jet Li's character in a very deceitful way attempting to assassinate the emperor of the state of Qing. And that is essentially it. And in a way, what this film ends up progressing into is, in a way, like communist propaganda. Well, honestly, not even in a way. This film is basically communist propaganda. But really, that doesn't mean shit to me. I will not docket points for that at all. Soy Cuba is an excellent film that I love dearly. I think I gave that film a soft 9 out of 10 or something like that. Or strong 8, I don't know, but I really loved that film. That is also communist propaganda. Probably even more intense communist propaganda than Hero. So it just all depends on how compelling I think it goes about justifying its case. But really that doesn't mean shit to me. I really don't care that it's communist propaganda at all. I'm not going to docket points for that or anything. It all depends on how it goes about exploring its case and justifying it. Because Soy Cuba, I Am Cuba is an excellent film. I love that film dearly. And that is honestly probably a more intense case of communist propaganda. And I still really loved that film because I just think almost everything about it is just explored so well, on top of the fact that I think its visual presentation is phenomenal. So Yeah, by the way, I'm Cuba is getting a Criterion release, and I am so excited for that. But yeah, essentially, this does become a film that is justifying the unification of China. And it is, again, also justifying the necessary evils and all of the conquering that it took in order to unify China into what it is today. Because before the unification, China was split up into different states, and all the different states had their own unique cultures to them, and even different languages as well. So, this film is trying to justify kind of wiping, not completely wiping all that off the face of the planet, but it is just saying that what happened to all these separate states was a necessary evil in order to achieve the greater good. And I do think that it did explore the morale and the philosophy behind it and the reasoning behind the characters' decisions. I think it explored it in a compelling enough way. I do think that in a film like I Am Cuba, it explores it in a much more nuanced way to where I feel like the audience can really understand where the writer and filmmaker is coming from, in a more, again, like deeper understanding kind of way. And I feel like with Hero, it is a little bit more like fluffy with it, and it's more about like love and pacifism and things like that. As opposed to something like I Am Cuba, where it's like, no, this is like, we need this to happen because it's like survival mode kind of thing. But I did find it thought-provoking, and I did find it interesting. And overall, I am satisfied thematically with this film. Narratively, also, I feel similarly about the theme as I do with the narrative, because in this film, we basically go through like what I feel like is 4 different stories, but they're all combined into the same story. It's just that we get, it is kind of spoilery, I guess, but they're like fake stories. I feel like on rewatch, it might not hold up as well, knowing that, the emotional weight of what we witness in some of these stories, explaining how Jet Li got to where he was in the position that we see throughout the entire film. They just won't hold the emotional weight as they did before. Even like when you watch it the first time, after knowing that, it was basically bullshit, you kind of don't feel as compelled as you were like 5 seconds ago. But regardless of that fact, I do still feel like there are plenty of interesting and compelling thematic and narrative details that are woven within each story that we see. And I do think as the film progresses into what is truthful, I think like as the film progresses, we start getting more of the truth. And I do think that it becomes more compelling, the closer that we do get to the truth. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I do need to watch it again, because it's possible that throughout a lot of it, we were just getting half-truths. Even in the story that I do think were completely made up. Maybe there's probably a lot of half-truths in there as well. So, I don't know. I definitely want to rewatch this film again, because I did really enjoy it. And even if I wasn't in love with it, I would still want to watch it again, just because of the fact that it is an incredibly visually stunning film. And Christopher Doyle knocks it out of the park. All the actors in this film, the entire cast fucking kills it. And overall, it was an interesting and in some ways a new experience for me that I really appreciated and admired. So I'm going to give Hero a very strong 7 out of 10. Again, thank you so much, Jayduh, for requesting this film and, really wanting me to talk about it on camera. It really means a lot to me that you did that. And again, if anybody is interested in requesting a film to me to watch and review in the next month of March, please make sure to join that tier by the end of the month. But anyways, that's all I got to say about Hero. If you really enjoyed what I had to say about the film, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.